All right. Welcome back to the Hypersensitive Podcast. What is up, everybody? I'm your host, Chrissy Mozeliski. And today we have a special guest, Hunter.
How's it going, folks? My name is Hunter Le Blanc, and I am an accountant and a DJ.
Yes. So we're going to get into it today. We're going to talk about what it's like to be a CFO of a huge company, but then also be a DJ by night.
I like playing during the day, too.
You like playing during the day as well?
Yeah. Although you don't get the lasers don't look as good during the day, so night shows are usually better for that. But
yeah. Absolutely. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you
Thanks.
so much for coming out
Thanks
today.
for having me. Yeah, this is really fun. I'm really excited for this.
Good. I'm so glad. So, okay, how did this all come about? Did you know that you wanted to be a CFO of a company, or how did that
Not really. I mean, like when I was in school, like elementary school, I was really good at math. Like, you remember those like Mad Minutes?
Yeah.
Crush that shit. Always the first one done. Except me and Dennis. Dennis was really good too. We'd usually go like first or second.
That's awesome.
And then, when I got to university, I knew I wanted to do like business stuff. And I was like, well, and they explained, you do your first year of business and they kind of explain like general things. It's like, do you want to do marketing, HR? And then it was like accounting. And I was really good at the accounting courses. And then they do these seminars about like, what path do you want to go in? They're like, oh yeah, the accounting one pays you a lot of money. And I was like, all right, I'll do that one. I'm good at math. Why not? We'll see where it goes. So.
Oh my God. I feel like I don't meet very many people that are good at math. I'm terrible at it. I just about failed math. I never actually failed, but I was very close. Mm-hmm. And I think it was all because I think the teachers just
suck.
Yeah, that too. At teaching.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, there's like functional math, like, I don't know, 2 + 2, and you just use a calculator for that stuff. Okay, I don't need a calculator for 2 + 2. But then in university in first year, you have to do like calculus, right?
Right.
And I failed calculus because it's like it's made up numbers. It's the dumbest thing in the world. I'm like, why do we have to learn calculus? Unless you're like, an engineer or like in physics, it's like, it's just a filter, and it's completely useless information. So that really drove me nuts.
Well, that makes me feel better that I didn't have to do it. So you're the person that does math for his job is telling me that we don't need it.
Yes, no, you don't need it. So
also, my cats are literally screaming in the background, so I apologize, everybody. So did your parents have any influence on what you wanted to do with your life, or were you free to sort of pick what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I was free to kind of pick what I wanted to do, and they really didn't push me much. However, let's say I was very, very fortunate that I grew up in kind of a house of academia, because my dad he's retired now, a professor of archaeology at the University of Alberta. So I kind of grew up in a house where there was a lot of education. It was very valued. And I know when I was finishing high school, it was kind of I didn't even really think about it. It was just I was going to go to university no matter what, you know? So, but they never was like, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. My mom was always just I just want you to be happy. And I was like, oh, thanks, Mom,
Yeah, so, absolutely. Really nice. I feel like that's probably a pretty good balance, though, to have the balance of academia, but then also them supporting you and saying that they just want you to enjoy life and be happy, whatever that looks like for you. That seems pretty healthy.
Yeah, and I certainly know, and I've told my dad this, and as I realized this growing up, or at least becoming a professional, is our dinner table conversations are lightning fast. We're jabbing at each other back and forth the whole time, and I think it's made me be able to think on my feet quicker, when it comes to things like negotiations or presentations. I was very good at presentations because I could think on my feet very, very quickly. Yeah. Because at my dinner table, you had to be on it or you're going to get it from someone. So yeah, it's very, very competitive. Yeah.
That's kind of rad though. Mm-hmm. So do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother, yes.
One brother? Mm-hmm. And what does he do?
He's a lawyer in Toronto, although he's had trouble. I think the term now is failure to launch. Although we just got another job starting on Monday, which we're very, very happy for him. So
good. That's awesome. That's good awesome. For him.
He's a brilliant mind, but we, like so many other people our generation, he has depression, and things like that. So
yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, it is. And actually, I'm trying to teach him to DJ because he's part of the music community in Toronto, and I think that would kind of really help him gain more self-confidence because I know it's been huge for me. So yeah, and it's a way for us to bond because when we were kids, we really didn't have much of a relationship. Yeah. I actually remember this moment when I was 15, talking to my friends, and I was just what, you guys like your siblings?
It's down.
It's down.
It's down. Hold on, everybody. Oh my God. Okay, before the catastrophe of my sign falling down, this janky shit.
It's a very candid conversation, folks.
You were saying that you're trying to get your brother. You're trying to get your brother into music in Toronto and seeing if that could be something that could maybe help him.
Well, yeah, he loves music. He's more techno. I'm not really a techno DJ. I feel it's too like, like let me breathe. But he has been unemployed for, I don't know, roughly a year or so, and he's lost that sense of music community because he can't go to shows anymore. And so I had this thought, just chatting with my parents, like I bought him a starter DJ controller. It hasn't shown up yet because shipping delays, whatever, to kind of like, get him back involved in the community. And it's a way for us to like build a relationship together, because that's not something we really have ever had other than, oh, hey, nice to see you at Christmas, And so it's like, okay, I'll teach him to DJ, like we'll chat maybe once a week. It's like, here you do transitions and blah, 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 book shows and whatnot,
Is he younger or older than you?
He's older than me. He's 37. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Brilliant mind though. Like the guy is insanely smart, knows his history, knows his law, so it's just like get him that little nudge in the right direction.
That happens though. I feel like brilliant minds tend to also struggle a lot as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, how did you get into music? So you CFO by day, DJ by day, afternoon and night.
Yep. Whenever I have time to practice. So.
Yeah. So what's that like for you?
So actually, I've always been like really into music. Like there's always music playing from when I wake up to go to bed. It's always a big part of my life. Like I started with like metal. Those are the first shows I started going to. I got out of that because the culture of metal is awful. Like a mosh pit is like a legal way to beat people up. It's really actually, I don't think it should be allowed.
I've never been like
I don't recommend
at a metal mosh pit.
Though it's
I've been
really
to like
dangerous.
maybe 1 or 2 metal concerts in my life,
and
but
like
I
fun.
never got
I had great
involved
times,
in the
but
pit.
Yeah, the pit's not cool. And then I had phases with rap, with classic rock, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and then I got into EDM originally. Actually, when I was doing my accounting designation, it was funny. At the time, so I'd work all day and then I have to study all night, because that's kind of what happens when you do your accounting designation. You're just busy all the time working. Yeah. And at the time, I was listening to Talking Heads, amazing band, love them, but the music's very complex. There's lots of weird sounds and and words and whatnot.
A lot of layers.
I was having trouble focusing, and then YouTube was like, you should try Daft Punk. And I was like, sure, whatever, play. And I crushed it that night. I got so much stuff done. And then the next night I was like, well, just try it again. And it just snowballed from there, that it became my work music. And then it was my everyday music. And now it's everyday life. So
that's rad.
That's how I originally got into EDM. And then as far as the community goes, I never actually went to any festivals or any EDM shows until about a year ago. And that was because of a relationship I had. The girl I was seeing, she was like, hey, I'm big into festivals. Do you want to come to one? And I was like, sure, I always wanted to try. And I went and I was like, this is amazing. I've been missing out. I'd like to do this. And so I did a bunch of festivals last summer. And then as I was leaving the last one last summer, which is Wicked Woods, fabulous time. I can't wait to go back. It's only actually in less than 2 months from today. And I was just like, you know what? It doesn't look that hard. You just push buttons and dance.
You're like,
and don't get me wrong. I
could do this.
Yeah, and I didn't want to slag the profession at all, because there's much more layers to that. But I just thought, I think I could do this. And then I was kind of pondering that for a while. And I saw on Facebook one of the DJs that I really like. His name was Wes Please. He's like, hey, I'm starting this online DJ course. Does anyone want to take it? And I was like, is the universe telling me something? Message him, Hunter. And so I messaged him and I was like, hey, Wes, I'm interested.
Things are falling together.
Yeah, let's do this. So I was his first sign up. So we had 6 of us in our first course. We did weekly Zoom calls. We do weekly one-on-ones. And honestly, the most valuable thing is that I could just at any time text him, be like, hey, Wes, what do I do? He's like, you do this, and Google just can't do that. You know what I mean? So plug for Wes Please DJ School. Sign up for that if you're interested. Highly recommend. Wes is an awesome guy. If you message him on Facebook Messenger, he'll literally reply. It's him. Okay.
That's awesome.
Anyways,
if you want to be a DJ.
If you want to be a DJ. And he's just a great guy. We had 6 of us in the group, and Wes made us 7. So our group name is West Club 7.
Oh my God.
I know.
That is a throwback for millennials.
Exactly.
If you get it, you get it.
If you get it, you get it. Totally.
What is the culture like in music and being a DJ? Because I know that there's a lot of probably stigma around being a DJ.
There is. Yeah, certainly in North America, there's a lot of stigma around it. It's all it's you're partying,
drinking,
you're
drugs,
doing drugs,
sex.
All this kind of stuff. And it's why aren't you focused on your work? But I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you look to Europe, DJing is considered a profession. and it's like a really well respected thing.
Yeah.
Now I'll say this: the standards for what makes you a DJ in Europe are a little bit higher than they are here per se. Like,
Right.
and I honestly think it's kind of like a social issue. Like I know here a lot of people that go to festivals and see DJs, they're maybe not the most affluent, you know, and they've maybe had tougher upbringings, and they go there and they're like, wow, this music's really fun. I want to get into it. So they get into it, but they don't necessarily have the money to buy the gear, and gear is very, very expensive, and having good gear makes a massive difference. And I know that's helped me because I was able to, you know, because I have a career outside of it, I was able to be like, well, give me the good stuff. You know, I want to learn on the good
You're
stuff.
like,
And
give me the good shit, not this janky shit that falls off the wall.
Not kidding. So it's just made a huge difference because you're like, no, I'm playing on the things that the best guys in the world want to play on, you know? And it's like, wow, this makes it a lot easier. Because I mean, like, you know, certainly DJing now compared to like 20 years ago, back then it's like, no, you're literally having to match 2 different records. Like, forget that. I wouldn't have been able to learn that in like 6 months. You know what I mean? But now the technology and the software just makes it so it's like, no, you can kind of figure this stuff out. And I compare it to like what if you had to like start a band, like, or learn to play guitar? Like that would take years. And not only that, like starting a band, like you need to get like 4 to 5 people who are talented and can work together.
Right.
And then like schedule.
DJing's
like, it's a one person thing you just do by yourself when you're feeling it, you know? And so it's that's something I love about it. And electronic music in general, there's a very low barrier to entry. Any old teenager with a computer can be like, I can start making songs, you know?
And they do.
And they do.
And they totally
it's really cool.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, what you were saying was interesting about Europe and the culture of music and DJing and dance and clubs and things like that.
Yep.
It is different. And
completely.
I feel like I have heard that they have like daytime like raves.
Yeah. And what's really cool about it is
like
it's much less
break.
about doing drugs. You know, it's like, no, you're there to dance. Right. And that's, don't get me wrong, it's not like people aren't getting intoxicated while they're doing those things, but it's much less of that, where there can be a lot of culture here where it's like, oh, we're going to do drugs. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I know a big part
especially
of that,
in BC.
Especially in BC, right? Although I will say this, and I am not slandering anyone at all for their substance abuses. I'm the last person to do that. I'll be perfectly frank with you. I think it's actually kind of hilarious that we as a society kind of slander people for, you know, getting intoxicated when everyone likes getting intoxicated. I mean, like most people like drinking, right? And alcohol is actually very, very high on the harm index, as opposed to some other drugs, which are actually not as bad for you as alcohol, but alcohol is the socially acceptable one.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, anyways, what I was saying was one of the reasons so many people do drugs while at festivals is because they're self-conscious, and it removes their self-conscious, like it removes their insecurity. So they're like, now I feel like I can go dance.
Yeah, now I can be free.
Exactly.
Now I can go dance. Yep. Now I can be myself.
Exactly.
I think also people feel like it increases their ability to have fun as well. So
yeah. And like let loose. It's like, I mean, you know, the world we live in now is very stressful, you know?
Yeah,
it's like,
people
I
just want to numb themselves out and just go and dance. And
the problem though is like when it becomes a habit and it becomes something that people rely on, that release. And that's when, of course, drugs become a substance use problem, et cetera, right? So, and it's, you know, certain drugs are a lot more addictive than others and can be a lot more destructive. So, and they get attached to the music community because it's almost like an origin story for them, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
No, that makes sense. It's kind of like, I remember being kids and it was like, you're a poser if you don't dress like the music you listen to.
Yeah, totally.
If you don't look like the music you listen to. So it's like, it's a culture.
Absolutely. It's like you all in and out, like, who are you? Which I think is absolute nonsense. Like, just show up as yourself and be yourself. And that's what I love actually about the EDM community is it's very welcoming to pretty much everyone. As long as you're respectful and loving, you're welcome. Doesn't matter what you're wearing, what you're doing, people love you. Whereas, you know, other genres, no names mentioned, metal, rap, we'll say, can be a lot more, you know, like there's a lot more gatekeeping.
Right.
So, which is just not very welcoming, you know.
I love hip hop music. What I
love to do, my favorite types of like my name is I like to mix those genres, house music like with rap.
Right.
Yeah, that stuff's very fun. And like house music with like classic songs, you know, like Whitney Houston, because everyone knows the words,
Whitney.
right?
Yeah.
So,
of
and
course.
I think it's a very like evolving style. By the way, I haven't even mentioned my DJ name. It's HouseWrecker. It's like even if you're not dancing to it, you can still sing to it. So it's about making the crowd involved. Because I've noticed in a lot of EDM genres, it's like, well, it's what the artist wants to play, which I think is really, really important. You need to play music you like because like the crowd will feed off your energy. If you're just playing music that you think the crowd should play, the crowd's going to see it on your face and they're not going to like reflect your energy, and the show's not going to be as good. So
Absolutely.
So my thing is I play music, A, that I like, and B, that I think will appeal to a broad audience. So
yeah, absolutely. You got to get everybody involved.
exactly.
Play a little,
Because
be
the
more
most
rounded.
important thing from a DJ is how good's the dance floor, right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
that's your measure of success. So
Of course. Otherwise, everybody's leaving.
yeah.
So you're involved in music.
Mm.
You have found it to be in some way, would you say, healing?
Big time. Yes, absolutely. Like just being a part of it, you know, and just how supportive the community is awesome. I know, like for myself, I struggle with self-confidence for most of my life. And then when you start joining festivals and going to shows and everyone's like, how you doing? You're looking amazing. And I'm just like, well, thank you. No one's ever said that to me before, you know, because, there's certainly a culture in North America, you know, toxic masculinity of like, oh, don't compliment your friends, you know, like, what are you doing? You know, I certainly grew up with that, you know, the words like the hard F word were pretty much common, right?
Absolutely.
Everywhere. And it's like, those words are like so not welcome in the EDM community. It's like, get out if you're saying those things, which I love. Like we need to have standards for these things. Stop letting people get away with disrespecting cultures, you know, religions, whatever. Right. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's been very, very healing for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. We both grew up in the prairies, so there's definitely a different
big
culture
time.
there.
Yes, you know, the culture of, you know, drinking hockey, watching hockey. It literally is drinking hockey.
You're just
watching hockey,
it
drinking beer and chicken wings, you know, right?
Totally.
And don't get me wrong, I had a lot of really good times doing that, you know, when I was young with my friends, you know, at bars in Edmonton and whatnot. But I just think there's better ways to have fun nowadays. So
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So if music has been healing for you, what were you experiencing before? And like you said that it's brought you a lot of self-confidence.
Yeah.
Why do you think that you lacked self-confidence growing up?
I think it's actually related to what I was saying earlier. It's that we don't really live in a culture that compliments each other, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you're not insulting your friends, you're like a pussy, pardon my language, right?
Yeah,
you know?
no, I get it.
Certainly with males. And so you kind of just always have that. And, you know, I never really had much confidence with women growing up. And that was kind of all tied together, you know? And so like coming into the music community and just being myself and having people be like, wow, that guy's pretty awesome. I'm like, I guess I am, you know? Like, thank you for finally recognizing that. Yeah.
You're like, I fucking knew this.
Yeah,
but I was just waiting.
telling people all along.
You're like, I felt it on the inside, but I wasn't seeing anything on the outside.
Like positive feedback, right?
Right.
And then when you don't get that positive feedback loop, you get into a negative feedback loop. And I'll say this too, and this is part of a thing we'll probably talk about later, is cannabis. So I was a huge cannabis user for pretty much most of my adult life. And I didn't realize how much it took for me, because I call cannabis now a silent thief, because it makes you very self-conscious. You know, like we've all been there. I'm not saying everyone smokes weed, but you're sitting there and you're like regretting all your life decisions when you get high, right? And that doesn't want to make you like go out and make new friends, because you're gonna be like, oh, they're not gonna like me. I know I used to think that all the time, you know, and I stopped using cannabis. I say 99% stopped. I use it every once in a while to help me sleep. About 6-7 months ago, and it's completely changed. Like, you know, just when I walk into a room full of stoners, no offense, everybody, I'm like, oh, I'm the most confident person here, right? Because weed makes you self-conscious, you know, and that's why I call it the silent thief, because it's very easy to get into that cycle of, what are you doing today? Well, let's just, you know, smoke a blunt, eat some food, watch some TV shows, and that's it.
Totally.
Right? As opposed to being like, no, what am I doing to like make my life better today? Or, you know, going out and meeting new friends and making new connections, and, you know, just having a lot more fun. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot more people smoke weed now because it's legal here.
Of course, right?
And so I think that it doesn't necessarily, in my observation, necessarily pair with every type of person. Mm-hmm. I think everybody has a different reaction to it.
Yeah, and I know only speaking about my experience, of course.
Yeah, and for me, it just gave me so much anxiety. I probably stopped smoking weed when I think I was pretty much done with it when I was 18. And then like in my early 20s, I probably dabbled a little bit more, but it was just like, I don't need this anxiety in my life. Mm-hmm. I also have a lot of mental illness in my family, and it can exacerbate.
Big time. Yeah. You can get into that negative spiral.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to be, you know, if this is something that I can control, why would I not want to have good mental health?
Totally. Yeah.
So I was just like, no, I'm not interested in that. Definitely dabbled in other drugs. I've never really been a drinker myself, but definitely had my fun with other drugs. And then now at this point in my life, that phase is pretty much over.
Yeah.
But I know that you also work with psilocybin, and I'm a big fan.
Yeah. And to finish the one thought on cannabis is just, I think I mentioned this earlier, like most people like being intoxicated. I just think there's better ways to do it than cannabis. I mean, cannabis
Yeah.
is good because it's like an everyday thing. You don't really get a hangover, but if you want to feel a little bit happier, there's better ways to do it. I mean, my personal preference is psilocybin and of course mushrooms. They've been absolutely life changing for me. Like I know when I started on I call it my mushroom journey. I was having a real hard time getting over a prior relationship. And then, just you do a couple like really big doses, like hero doses, and it's a little scary going in because you don't know what's going to happen. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm good. And you just kind of move on. It's mushroom, because mushrooms and psilocybin, it removes the mask of life. And you're face to face with your insecurities. And the thing is, though, that can be, I don't want to use the term dangerous, but like it can set people into negative spirals if they don't have a natural confidence and happiness with who they are as a person. Like I may have struggled with self-confidence before, but I'm still always very happy with who I was as a person and the life I had built. So once I started doing psilocybin, I'd be like, oh, here's an insecurity. And it's like, okay, we need to deal with this now because you can't walk away from it. You're just sitting there like thinking, and like, oh God. And don't get me wrong, there's so many nights where I'm just bawling my eyes out, like lying there being like, yep, that's why this is like that. But it's great because once you've done that, you understand a lot of things about your life. It's like, okay, like here's an example. Like I love sandwiches. It's my favorite food in the world. I absolutely adore sandwiches.
Are you serious? Sandwiches your favorite?
Like honestly,
I've
most
never
nights
heard
I'm
anyone
like,
say this.
I just want a sandwich for dinner, and I'm a really good cook, and I just love making sandwiches.
Just a sandwich, man.
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
where that came from, and I just psilocybin helped me realize this was when I was a kid. One, my mom traveled a lot, and two, I was a very picky eater. And three, my mom really didn't have any fucking patience for me being a picky eater. So she would just make whatever she wanted to make for her, my brother and my dad.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, feed yourself, Hunter. And I'd be like, well, I guess I'm making myself a sandwich tonight again.
And that's it. And that's what you
where
ate.
that came from. Yeah. So, and it's just really fascinating to start to dive into your like subconscious mind about why did these behaviors happen. It's almost always from prior traumas, whether that's relationship, childhood, or I use this one a lot as work. So work trauma, yes.
Yeah,
I'm sure you know that in film.
That rings a bell. Rings a bell.
Yes.
And I don't want to blame the industry necessarily. It can be toxic in its own ways. Like the hours are absolutely crazy, and there's personalities there. But I also take responsibility for the fact that it brings up my own triggers and my own perfectionism and my own, view of myself, which was not always positive. And I still work in film. I don't want anybody to think that I've stopped. I still work in film. I just work in a different department, something that's a lot more lovely for me. But yeah, psilocybin can be a huge help. Huge help.
And also, I mean,
therapists are using it. You can do,
and they've done, and like in terms of the harm index, I think I mentioned this before, like, I'm just making numbers up. I'm ballparking here because I haven't looked it up in a while. But like a 0 to 100, psilocybin and mushrooms are like a 2 or a 5. Like alcohol is like 80. Like alcohol is way more destructive to your body.
It's a carcinogen.
Exactly, as opposed to psilocybin. So for me, I definitely have a substance abuse problem. I've had it most of my entire adult life. Like I like being intoxicated. Psilocybin is something that has like improved my life while doing that. So it's like, instead of being a detriment to my life when I want to socialize, right? It makes my life better, and I like to do mushrooms. Like when I go out and dance, it gives me so much energy. I can stay out all night and, like I don't get irritable, I wake up the next day, usually feeling fairly refreshed. It just depends how late you stay up really. Cause that's the thing.
Of course.
Your brain's firing. It's hard to go to bed.
Right.
So yeah, it's been such a positive force in my life. And the other thing that I really love is being a unlicensed, unofficial psilocybin therapist. So I love having friends come over to my house. We do big dose together, and we listen to music for a couple hours, and then we just talk about life. And I've had
that's nice to be able to connect with. And do you typically do that with male friends and just like take that time to connect with them?
Yeah, so far it's only been male friends. I mean, there is the stigma around why would a female go to a man's house by herself, right? I understand that. I respect it. Yeah. I am totally open to doing that. I'm actually hoping to do sessions with women with my partner as well at some point. So we just haven't got to that yet. And I've had multiple friends be like, you changed my life that night. And like, here was an example. Like
I have a couple guy friends that do this.
yeah,
Yeah, they do.
So I had actually a coworker. He was visiting, and he's like, hey, because we would talk about psilocybin, just through work casually, and he's like, I'd like to do one with you. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we're like going through it, and like I could see he's kind of struggling at first. He's like, he's kind of like stirring and whatnot. I'm like, oh, he's going through it. Like he's facing some emotions right now. But I just left him. I was like, I'm gonna let him get through it on his own.
Yeah.
And then it's just like later on the night, I just see him like lying there. He's just like got the biggest grin on his face. I was like, what are you smiling about there? And he's like, I just realized how much I love my girlfriend. I was like, you text her that right now. Let her know that.
You tell her.
You tell her that right now. And then like, I don't know, a couple days later, he's like, man, like we've never been happier together. And then like I saw her like a couple weeks later and she's like, thank you so much for doing that. And I'm just like, that makes me so happy, So,
yeah, it helps people work through some of their traumas or to just see yourself in a different light and see yourself in a different view.
Yeah. Well, and so much like a lot of relationship problems happen because people are like, just tell the person you love them a lot, because generally speaking, there's a reason you got together. Like, certain things.
Life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way, and you forget
Stress.
to tell the person, no, I still love the shit out of you. Whatever the problem is, let's work it through together.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, that's really good to hear. And you had mentioned something about toxic masculinity. So obviously this is something that you as a man are aware of.
Big time, yes.
Have you ever considered yourself to be a toxic man in the
past?
past?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Not necessarily, certainly not on purpose, but I mean, that was...
Or a wounded
default,
man.
right?
Some people don't like the terminology toxic masculinity.
I think that's
some
fair.
People say wounded masculinity.
I think that could definitely apply to me as well. But, it was almost like there was no other way. You know what I mean? And if you did try to sow any vulnerability, you were chewed the fuck up, And so, like, of course, if you lack self-confidence, you're like, well, I'm not going to say anything, right? I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, right?
Right.
Overall, though, I know certainly for myself, I always respected women. I mean, that's the thing that absolutely drives me nuts is... there's these amazing women that, like they handle all like the finances, the planning, the cleaning, whatever. And then the guy's just a dick. And she's like, well, it's the best I can do. And I'm like, oh my God. Stuff drives me nuts. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You're like, where's the respect here?
Yeah. And actually that's something that I try to do at my shows. If I see someone like disrespecting women, they look uncomfortable, like I'm going to pause the music, but like get out. Like we don't stand for that at our live shows. You need to have a higher standard. So
absolutely, or get the fuck out.
Seriously,
treat women with respect.
No kidding. Yeah,
treat people with respect.
Treat people with respect. Yes, it's that simple. Gosh.
Yeah, it can be. I'm sure somewhat of a journey to realize the toxic parts of yourself. As men and as women, as people. How do you think that you overcame that?
I definitely credit that to my mom, who's just an absolute angel. That I was definitely raised that way. And so, just going through life, I was always just trying to do the right thing. And I think actually a really good reflection of that is in my first relationship. So my ex-wife, we were together for 12 years and like amazing person. She's absolutely brilliant, scientist. She lives in England now.
Oh, wow.
She actually serves on an international panel for stopping wildlife trafficking, which is really fucking cool. Like she's making the world a better place.
That's right.
For myself though, like I never had, like we never were the right match for each other. Like great person. We got along. We rarely ever fought, but like, we just were not compatible.
Right.
But like I was like, well, I'm not getting any better than this. I'll just take it. Right. If that makes sense. Right. And
you're like, on paper,
this all makes sense.
Makes
like,
sense.
How
She's amazing.
Am I not happy, right? She's amazing, right?
We're both doing really well.
Exactly, right? But I was always like not very happy in that relationship. And again, no disrespect for her. She's a great person, but it just wasn't the right person for me. So, So it took me a really long time to be like, all right, Hunter, you're only going to live one life, spend it with someone you want to spend time with. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And actually I'll allude to here to keep sidebarring. I love sidebars. That actually inspired my DJ name, HouseWrecker. So of course I play house music. House is in the name. It's a great name. If you're throwing a good party, you might wreck a house. But really it's actually like, I'm kind of the breakup guy. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible.
I was wondering if you had if you had thought about your name and that's okay. I was like HouseWrecker. Okay, this is interesting. So I'm thinking of like the term like home wrecker.
Exactly. Honestly, my original DJ name was gonna be home wrecker. I thought of that, but it was already taken.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, how about HouseWrecker? And I actually like it way more. So when I say I'm like the breakup guy, I'm the breakup guy for relationships that should be broken up. if two people are happy and are loving each other, that is the most amazing thing in the world. I'm so happy for you. Keep going for that. If you're going through a tough time, work on it together. The relationships that need to be broken up, like one's treating the other like shit or one doesn't love the other one, move on with your life.
So
Go find somebody else.
Totally.
Yeah.
So are you encouraging people that are not happy to break up, or are you saying that more for your own self, like because you've gone through a divorce,
yes,
you're
this
like,
is
this was my
story,
own.
and I
Got
know
it.
like, and I mean, again, no disrespect to my past partners that might listen to this podcast, but like every time I've had a breakup, my life has gotten better. And it's not necessarily a reflection of that person. It's because I was like, well, why didn't this relationship work out? What can I do to work on myself to be better for the next one? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like I said, yeah, if you're being treated like shit, you should probably move on. Although don't get me wrong, I will not deny how difficult that can be for some people who get trapped in the cycle, whether that's emotional or, financial.
When there's when there's money wrapped up, when there's kids,
absolutely. And that's also, and I think that's a reflection of society, that we need to have more social support systems for that. So if someone is in a cycle of abuse, they have resources to get out.
Absolutely. 100%. It's really, really tough, and it can be really scary. The stigma, it can be really hard. It can be really embarrassing.
Absolutely.
Have had my own experiences with tough breakups, but that's really interesting. So I'm glad I know what that name means for you.
Trust me, I get some weird looks sometimes. Like people will message me. It's like,
people
why
are like,
are you trying
am
to
I
break
safe
up my relationship?
in my relationship around you?
Yes,
Should I come to this show?
I mean, like, so my slogan is the greatest night of your life. This is HouseWrecker.
Oh my God.
It's just a slogan. It's just for fun, So, yeah.
Okay, so going back to the fact that you've been married, I feel like millennials are still getting married. I don't know about Gen Z, if that's still something that's in their minds.
Probably not.
I have no idea.
Who knows what they're thinking?
I feel like they're still too young to get married yet. And if they are, they're getting married very young for different reasons.
Definitely.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 25. Actually, it would have been my 10-year anniversary this summer, hilariously enough. So
okay.
Yeah.
Because you were saying that you'd been together for 12 years.
Yeah, it was
and
12
then
total.
12 total from dating.
Yeah, we were together for 7, and we got married, after 7, whatever, so 5 more, and then we broke up after 12. So
okay, so you met in high school.
I was just out of high school. She was in grade 12.
Okay.
Yep.
And how did that all come to be? Like, how did you know you wanted to get married so young? Was that just like because you're from like a really good and loving family and academic, and like that was like the
I'll have to push back on very good and loving. I mean, my mother is very good and loving, but I wouldn't say we were the most functional family. We kept it together, you know, because I mean, I certainly know, and actually this is something I have to give full credit to my mom too. I won't say my dad's perfect. He's an amazing person, but my mom saw one of my best friends growing up. His parents separated when he was like 2 or 3, and he was devastated. And her words are, he was never the same person again. And so she was like, it doesn't matter how hard it gets in this relationship, I need to keep it together for my kids.
Wow.
Yes.
So that scared her.
Yes.
So she was like, I don't care.
Doesn't matter what the sacrifice is, and I give so much credit to my mom for that.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty incredible. She's an amazing person. So
it's hard to say what would have been different if they had separated and how your life would have.
How my life would have been, right?
Yeah.
Doing the 2 household thing. And I mean, honestly, most of my friends growing up were like that. I think most of their parents broke up,
And from the outside, did your family and friends all think that things were together and things
Well, I mean, obviously there was the challenges with my brother, and, so that was probably the most visible thing. So it's like,
right.
I mean, every family's got issues, it's like there's
absolutely,
if I ever see a family that's like normal, I'm like, no, those are the crazy ones.
Totally. I'm like, those people are probably murderers or something.
Yeah, seriously.
Like...
or Mormons. Yeah. No offense.
So, okay, you were married at such a young age. What inspired you to get married so young? Were you just like, this is the right thing to do?
It's like, well, and like, I absolutely did love her. I was like, you're awesome. Like, this sure is. Actually, I will say this. We were planning on getting married, and then her brother got engaged with his fiance. And it was like a 2-year engagement. So we're like, well, shit. Like, do we got to wait 3 years or we do it next year? So we're like, well, fuck it. We'll just do it next summer.
We'll just do it.
It was a convenience thing.
Oh my God. Hey,
convenience thing, so.
That's so interesting. Yeah. What is it like going through a divorce?
Honestly, not that bad for me. Mostly because I don't have children, or we never had children. Like
Right.
when you read, because trust me, I was Googling, I was like, what was it like to go through a divorce?
I'm sure it gets harder as you get older and finances become more
More entwined.
entwined and
Yeah. And honestly, like
possible
90% of
kids.
the articles are like, what do you do with the kids? And I was like, well, I can skip past that. That's not a problem. And at the time, we didn't own any real estate. And that's another story I'm not going to get into. So that was
Yeah.
fine. It was like, well, here's the two piles of money, put them together, cut it in half. This is you. This is you. And other than that, it was fairly straightforward because, I mean, like, I don't want to give myself credit for this, but like, she's a good person that I always knew that she wasn't going to be someone that tried to screw me over. You know, it's like, no, let's just be reasonable about this. We're both important, very important people to each other, but it's not working out. And she's like, yeah, you know, you're right. Let's just move on. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I guess in terms of like, what does that mean about divorce? It's like, don't marry the wrong person in the first place.
Yeah, and that's tough.
Even if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Right? So
Was it something that you always knew in your heart that it wasn't the right person?
I wouldn't
Or you
say
didn't realize it
always.
until-
I mean, maybe it was, I don't know, 3 to 4 years in, but at the same time, it's like we were always doing so many things. Like we must have moved like 12 times in 10 years, you know, and it was new jobs and always new friend groups. And it was like, okay, we're on to the next thing. And then I actually remember being in Vancouver and being kind of unsure about staying here. And then thinking, well, let's see what happens when we go to Ontario. Is that going to change the relationship? And then we got to Ontario and I was like, nope. Wasn't that. And that's from there. It was like, all right, when am I going to do this? You know, and actually what happened, what originally sparked it was she got a postdoc at Yale University. And it's like, you got to go take that. Like, what an opportunity. But like, I was like, I don't want to move to Connecticut.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, hey, let's have a talk about this. And it kind of just went from there pretty quickly, actually. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And ultimately, did she feel the same way?
She did. I mean, don't get me wrong. Initially, there were some tears, but then she was like, yeah, this makes sense. And I was just like, what was I stressing about all that time?
Yeah. Once
So,
it's done, you're like, okay.
yeah, exactly. And
Like,
you know, like
a weight is probably
totally.
lifted.
Yeah. And like our friends, our close friends, they saw it too. They're like, you guys doing okay? I was like, not really. So yeah.
Having a tough time
Yeah,
right now.
having a tough time right now, you know. So, and full credit to her name's Laura. She was just the most amazing friend. She was our neighbor at the time. We've still been such close friends because she was that friend to like coach me through it because I had no idea what I was doing.
How do you know what you're doing?
Especially like and getting back into the dating pool because like you know my ex and I we got together when I was like 18.
Yeah.
And that was my entire 20. So I never got a chance to date. So she was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, here, go, you know, like, let's clean you up, go on Tinder dates. I was like, oh, thanks, Laura.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're like, I have
Such a
no
good
idea
friend.
what I'm
I have
doing.
no idea what I'm doing, right? But that was a fun experience is that I had a very open mind about, you know, dating. And it's so much easier now, like Tinder and Hinge and Bumble, whatever, you know. And I was just like, I'm just going to go on as many dates as possible. See how good the conversation is and go from there. It was honestly just like practice.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what dating can be
Yeah.
is like when you're getting back out there,
Mhm.
just go out and talk
Go
to
out,
people.
Just talk to people because that's what it is. You know, can you hold a conversation? right?
Yeah, and you're
So,
like, it
are
makes you look at
interesting?
yourself. Or am I interesting?
Yeah.
You're like, how am I presenting myself, and how am I reinventing myself? Because when you first started dating, you're a completely different person now.
Completely, absolutely. Oh
And
my
you're
gosh.
also like, you look at yourself different when you're single. You're like, okay, so this is just me.
Mhm.
This is just how I'm out in the world presenting myself. And
Mhm. And it was really good for me too to like, you know, I had relationships like off and on for, you know, close to 4 to 5 years. And, you know, when you do that as an adult, like, oh, great, now you're doing everything by yourself all the time. And so I got very used to being incredibly self-sufficient. And I always was self-sufficient, but it just made it to another level, you know?
yeah,
So, and I think,
absolutely.
because I
It's a
know,
new
like, when I
identity.
was in my relationship with my ex-wife, you know, like, you say there's the pink jobs and the blue jobs, right? So, and it's not to say that, like, she was in charge of cleaning, but, like, there's just certain things that you kind of fall into habits about.
Right.
You know, one thing she took a lot of the load was, you know, like, checking in on parents. She was like, oh, make sure you phone your parents this week. And I was like, oh, thank you for the reminder, right? And so, stuff like that. And then after we broke up, that kind of fell off and I had to, like, remind myself, nope, check in with your parents, Hunter, do it yourself, right? And so,
Right.
so now I find that I'm very self-sufficient from, like, I don't know, most angles because I just had to be, right? So and
Right.
it also works with my job, which is, of course, very complicated. So it all kind of fits together. So, yeah.
That's good.
Mhm.
And now you're in a new relationship
I
today.
am, yes. Yeah, she's absolutely amazing, the love of my life. I can't wait to marry her.
Oh my God, that makes me so happy for
Yeah,
you.
Yeah.
That's
she's wonderful.
amazing.
Yeah. She's so special because it's like, it's fascinating how many just things we have in common. I'll give you like 2 examples. So like there was a night we went out dancing and like the next morning we're just getting like some groceries and we're both, you know, a little sleepy, I'll say. And she's like, I need a chocolate bar. So she goes to the chocolate bar aisle, grabs a chocolate bar, throws it on the conveyor belt. And I was like, what's my favorite chocolate bar? Caramel sea salt. Okay, interesting.
That's a particular
Happened
one.
again. And there's another story. So when I was a kid, I really like Marvel and comics. And I used to collect comic books, and I'd be like, these are going to be worth a lot of money one day. I'm going to hold them, and I'll be rich. I was a big like get rich quick scheme guy when I was a kid. And then
That's hilarious. When you were a kid, just a little businessman.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was me. And then, I carried them around for a few years, and I just left them in this box. And then in this place I lived, I just left them in the basement. And then like a pipe leak dripped all over them and ruined them. And
no.
Yeah. And I was like, no, my retirement plan. And
still had your Beanie Babies, I hope.
I never actually got into BB Babies. But fascinating enough, my partner had the same story happen to her. She collected comic books, was holding them for a long time, and there was a leak in her basement that ruined them.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
That's
and
wild.
that happens all the time. I mean, it's actually ridiculous how many times we text each other the same thing at the same time. It's amazing.
It's meant to be, and you feel it, and you know it.
Yes, we feel like we're universe jumping. Like we've been together in a past life, or in this life, and we'll be together in a future life. So
that's so gorgeous, and you wouldn't have had that opportunity if you
not
had
for
just
everything
decided
that's
to
happened in my
stay.
life.
If you had
Exactly.
taken your mother's motto and just been like, you know what, I'm just going to do it for better, for worse.
Yeah.
You didn't have any children.
That's true.
If you're just like,
nice advice, Mom. No.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Could have been fucking disaster.
Yeah.
Would have missed out on finding the love of my life.
Exactly. So, but and that's something I say is like, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, and it's like, would you change anything? I'm like, nope, not absolutely, because I could not be happy with where I am. So.
That's amazing. So how did you meet?
We actually met at a festival. It was my first ever music festival, oddly enough. Now, we were both in relationships at the time.
Yeah.
But I think we caught each other's eyes. And, after my relationship ended and then hers ended, we would just be chatting here and there, and we were spending more time together. And it was like, what are we doing? Let's just do this, right? So
let's just make this happen.
Yeah. So.
That's so good.
Mm-hmm.
So you did find somebody when you were dating. You were like doing the Tinder thing. You found somebody, not the right person, and then it takes time.
It does take time. Yes.
It takes time to find the right person.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this though, like about Tinder dating and that stuff. I honestly actually just consider it practice now. I think the best way to meet people is through friends and activities, because then you share interests.
I totally agree.
I realized I was like, you know what? If doesn't matter how beautiful
can,
she is, how cool she is, if country's her favorite music, that is a swipe left for me.
You're
No
like,
offense to anybody that likes country, it's not my thing. So
you're like, I'm out.
I'm out. I just I can't come home and listen to that music every day. It's because I'm going to be playing EDM literally every day. I need my partner to be cool with that, right? Otherwise, it's going to be a serious riff, right? So. Yeah, I just, I kind of made that thought in my head. I was like, I'll just try to be the best version of myself, and someone will show up, and that's actually what happened. So.
When you start working on yourself,
exactly,
you start caring about yourself.
Be the best version of yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely. You attract the right person.
And I actually have that mindset about relationships in general. It's like, just because, like, let's say you're in a relationship, and I don't necessarily even mean like a marriage, like you're even dating. It's like you don't own each other. At any point in time,
absolutely not.
At any point in time, like if the deal is broken, that hey, we're not respecting each other, like it's over. Like that person can move on. It's like, let's say they find somebody else that's like, wow, that person has a lot of really cool qualities and treats me well. It's like that person isn't stealing your partner. It's like they're just like a better fit for them, or you know what I mean? Like there's no ownership on relationships, and that's something that actually really drives me nuts about it. So it's like, if you want to have like a really strong and amazing relationship with an amazing person, you need to be one too. Right?
Absolutely. I think that people get so used to they're being comfortable with each other, that you just right? You let things go out the window, and it's like you stop taking care of yourself physically. Exactly. You start mentally, absolutely mentally, and you just stop caring. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how's anybody gonna care about you if you don't care about yourself?
Exactly. What's the RuPaul line, right?
Yeah, pretty close. I know it wasn't exact. It's like paraphrasing, but yes. Yeah. How's anybody going to love? How the hell are you going to love anybody if you don't love yourself?
Yeah, exactly. So
absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a perfect example. Mm-hmm. I love that. If you had, do you have any specific goals that you want to accomplish in the next five years with your music or in your life?
Holy smokes, where do we start? So, I am starting a DJ talent agency.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that's in the last couple of weeks. So basically the idea is like I'm a matchmaker. It's almost like a dating thing. So it's like I go to music venues and I say, what dates are you available for music? And then I go to my huge pool of DJs. I'm like, DJs, these are the dates, these are the locations. Where do you want to get paid? And then I sort it out in between. And honestly, this idea just came to me like as I've been in the music industry is most agencies aren't very intelligent, or they don't know business that well. Like I know business very well. I'm new to the music industry. I'm new to the terms, whatever, but like I can figure out the terms from the artist in my DJ pub, like, hey, yeah, Wes, what is this thing? He's like, oh, it's like that, right? I'm like, okay, good.
Right.
Now let's apply like a business mindset to it, right? And like I think it could actually go somewhere. I'm really, really excited for it. Like I'm gonna have like an app that like, you can like buy merchandise off at a show or buy tickets off and whatnot.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to make it a real modern thing because a lot of the music industry is a heck of a lot of egos. And it's like, oh, you're new to this, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, well, at the end of the day, man, like these are people problems, and I'm really good with people. And I give credit to that to my career, which is in property management. So property management is a people business because you're just managing relationships between the tenants, the owners of your buildings, your vendors, etc. And what's unique about it is you take shit from every angle and you just have to eat it. There's like certain business where it's like, hey, if you don't like the thing we're buying, go away. Someone else will buy it. But if it's like the tenant's like, hey, my pipe's burst, you're like, we have to fix that. We don't have a choice.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can't. You have to always face your problems. And like, let's say you've now fixed that pipe. Now the owner's like, why did that pipe burst? And you're like, well, because you cheaped out on repairs last time. And he's like, I cheaped out on repairs last time because of blah blah blah, right? And it's like you're always managing those relationships. You're in the middle. So, and I've found with music, it's a lot of that too. It's a relationship people game. It's networking. It's like, who do you know that can book me a show, or who's a DJ you can collaborate with?
Totally,
right?
it's like that in film too. It's
exactly,
all
right?
networking.
It's all networking. Yeah. So I've really really enjoyed that part of it. So I'm really excited for that part. So that you could say like that's like my fun professional side, and then of course I'm going to keep the property management. That's my like professional side. But I actually do want to get into politics, maybe in like 10, 15 years.
Oh no way! Yeah. That is such a like dichotomy. You do so many different things, and there's such seemingly opposites.
Yeah, and I think like where that comes from though is that like I grew up in a house of politics. Like there never was a dinner conversation where my dad wasn't complaining about politics. And so like, I'm very used to it, like arguing about it, debating about it.
That's interesting.
Like my partner's just like, can we please stop talking about politics at the dinner table?
You're
it's
like,
no,
oh
we don't have a
please.
choice. That's what we do here. And like, I've always had a real passion for it, and I found it interesting. And so I feel like, if I cover, I can be the fun guy who also is the professional guy, like, hey, vote for me guys, and like, honestly, like a few of my one simple platform is that I think kind of succinctly says it is it's like, 50 years ago, if you could walk out of a factory, walk out of a high school and go into like, whatever factory in the middle of nowhere, get a job, marry, have kids, get a car, get a retirement home. You can't do that anymore on a professional income in most cities in Canada, right?
No, you can barely afford.
It's like, so what happened,
Yes.
Like, I'm pretty sure everyone can resonate with that, which is like, we all got screwed,
Yeah, our generation, I mean, not to cry and whine about millennials in our generation, but it's just like times are different.
It's a completely different set of rules, than it was 50 years ago, right? And
yeah.
Everyone knows this, right? And I've been talking with some older generations about they're like, oh, like the younger generation, they're not motivated now. It's like, would you be motivated if you had to work 80 hours a week and you never had a chance to own a house? Why would you want to work at all? Right?
It's like fuck.
There's no motivation.
What do you mean motivation? It's like we're out here working
just to survive, right?
We all have like a minimum of 2 jobs.
Yeah, right. Exactly, right. And
or
that's
the equivalent in hours.
Yes.
And then we all have side hustles, and we all have like creative things we want to do. And it's like, okay, you have like 6 hours a night to rest.
Barely, right?
Barely. And then it's like, oh, you guys don't have kids anymore. It's like, well, who's going to look after the kids?
Yeah. And like, who wants to like bring a child into this world?
I can't even afford a kid.
Can't even afford rent, let alone, it's not the avocado toast. That's the problem.
Exactly.
It's your rent being like $2,500 a month.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
Yeah. So I really would like to get into politics because I do think I can make a difference with the right storytelling and the right messaging, because that's really all it comes down to, right? So
that's interesting.
The other thing too is, there needs to be consequences, because there isn't consequences anymore for people in politics, and also government in general, for doing a bad job. You can lie and cheat and steal, and it's like, well,
which they
it's
all do. It doesn't matter
the way it is, right? Whereas like, 60 years ago, if you were caught lying, your political career was over that day, and it doesn't happen that way anymore. And I want to change that.
How would it look if you were in politics?
I mean, the music would be awesome.
Of course, obviously.
Honestly, it's just like, I just like come in and be like, if you do a bad job, you're fired. I'll get somebody else to do it. That's it. I'm serious. There needs to be standards.
Yeah, there does need to be
standards. And like, you look at like how, if you read your history, I'm a huge history guy. Like powerful nations were built on high standards, and we don't have that anymore. And like, no shit, the reason society's barely functioning. The CIA is about to be on strike. You know,
Yeah,
like, are
which
we
is
even going to be able to
insane.
file taxes this year? Like,
I've already got my taxes. Thank
well
God.
done, Chrissy. I'm an accountant.
I
I
did
don't
it
have mine done
real,
yet.
real fast.
I'm actually terrible for that, but anyways, don't
I
look
know.
into it, CRA.
I just went through an audit. It was really terrible.
No,
Thanks
it's
a lot.
exhausting, and that stuff drives me nuts too. It's like, why are you auditing workers like us? Like, we don't move the needle if you can't catch another $100 from us.
Yeah,
you know what
no,
I mean?
it's completely useless.
It's a complete misallocation of resources. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, I can't believe we got into politics, drugs, dancing,
Music.
divorce, music, Tinder.
Tinder, I guess that's sex. We can talk about that too if you want.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I was going to ask you about open relationships.
Yes.
How do you feel about them?
Well, you know, as I got into the EDM community, that was a big part of it. And actually, like I mentioned, the partner that I had that introduced me, she was into that stuff. I was like, I mean, this seems pretty cool. And like, I had very, very good friends that.
You're like, it's open-ended on both sides.
Yeah,
so
it's
like
they love each other to death. And I'm like, that looks really cool. I would like to do that. And so, you know, with my current partner, it's something we've talked about, but, you know, relationship's still pretty new and we got a ways to go to get there because it's all about trust and communication at the highest level.
Absolutely,
literally
it
everything.
is.
And don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure we can get there. We just haven't got there yet. So, but I definitely think it can be an absolutely incredibly healthy way to live. Because I mean, you know, like, sex doesn't have to be this most precious thing only between two people. Sex is beautiful, you know? I mean, and if you look again, read your history, like powerful empires like Rome and Greece, they fucked everybody. You know?
Literally everybody.
They fucked everybody. Doesn't matter the gender. They are having orgies all the time. And they were, you know, when they look what they did, right? So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just, you know, based on the relationship and the communication.
Yeah.
And there's the book, The Ethical Slut.
Yeah.
EDM, which is ethical non-monogamy or polyamory, however you want to phrase it. But it's more talking than it is sex. And most people think that, you know, polyamory is just constant sex, and it's not
really
about that. It's
no, it's not.
I mean, you still have to maintain a
It's
relationship.
still a relationship you have to maintain. Exactly.
Absolutely. And you have to like the person and love the person and, you know, care about the person. And there's a lot of communication that's involved to make sure you're all on the same page. And I've had friends and have friends that are in polyamorous relationships and make it work really great, and some others not so much.
Work.
So,
and you know, whatever reason that is, often it's communication, or maybe it's because I think actually a big part of it is expectations up front. Like if you're getting into a new relationship with someone, let's say you've done it before, you haven't done it before, it's like, hey, this is something I'd be interested in at some point. And then you work from there. Because like, let's say you've been in a relationship for a few years and you're like, hey, I want to open it up. The person's going to be like, well, why do you want to open it up? Do you not love me anymore?
Right.
That's where things can get pretty complicated very, very quickly. And it's not to say it can't work, but I think for people, if it's something you're interested, you need to be very upfront about that at the beginning of the relationship and find out, does that work? Does it not work? And if it doesn't work, well, do I still want to be with this person? Maybe I'm okay with that, whatever, right?
Totally. And it might even, you know, at some points too, it might not even be something you think of at the beginning of your relationship. And then you change as a person, we all evolve, we all change, we all go through things. And then we're like, actually, I feel like this could be an interest of mine. And
absolutely,
might want to have that conversation with your partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then have really fun parties.
Fun parties. Oh my God. Amazing. Well, that is it for today.
Awesome.
I am so happy that you came aboard. And
thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Join me on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing.
You know, we could probably do another episode sometime just on psilocybin.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that.
The things I've seen, Chrissy.
Oh my God. The things I've seen. Thank you so much. Where can people find you?
So like I said, my DJ name is HouseWrecker. So if you check me out on SoundCloud, please give me a follow. I'm also on Facebook, HouseWrecker. My Instagram is the HouseWrecker, although I don't really like using Instagram. Chrissy and I argue about this all the time. I prefer Facebook. See the eye roll?
We can't.
We're
have
not
this
getting into
conversation
that right now. That's another. And eventually I'll get a TikTok when I get around to it. So please look me up. My music's awesome. Come to a show. We'll dance together and have a good time.
Brad, love it. Peace out, everybody.
Thanks, guys.